Spoopy greetings everyone, and welcome to entry number 6 into my spooky diary. After we defeated the Great Demon in Silent Hill and discovered James Sunderland's deepest secrets in Silent Hill 2, it is time for us to move on to the third installment in the series. And it's going to be a direct sequel this time around. Well, not directly direct, but you'll get what I'm talking about once this video is over. So let us not waste any more time with chatting and jump right into the game. I actually played Silent Hill 3 prior to this series, but it has been some time since I did so. So I know a little bit about what's going on in the game. What I do know for certain is that it was, again, produced and published by Konami, and it was first released in Europe. Yay, go Europe! In May of 2003 for the PlayStation, and later on got a port for the PC. I also remember that the story revolves around a young girl named Heather. Heather is 17 years old and she lives in Portland together with her father. Now that I think of it, I actually do remember a lot about the game, but I don't want to spoil you guys too much. At least not at this point of the video. So why don't we go ahead and take a look at the premise of Silent Hill 3. As I said, the game deals with Heather, a young woman from Portland, and the game throws the player right into the action. As if you start a new game, you start off right in a creepy amusement park. That amusement park looks suspiciously a lot like the Lakeview amusement park from the first game. As you can probably tell from the footage in the background, Silent Hill 3 upped the quality in the graphics department again. The cutscenes have a lot of detail added to them, and at this point I feel it would be a little bit too repetitive to praise the game's progress. It is just as good as always. But back on track. Heather is attacked by mysterious monsters. The doggy demon finally makes a return, the one from Silent Hill 1, and she has to fight her way through the amusement park. We are also introduced to a few new enemies in the series. There is the so-called closer demon, and these big guys with the clumpy hands, and the pendulum demon. Those are just a few to mention. During her escape, Heather ends up on the tracks of a roller coaster, and it seems that she's been run over by it. Of course, this turns out to be a dream, and we learn that Heather is alive and well in a mall in Portland. So Heather gives a quick call to her daddy, and we are introduced to the game's other main character, Douglas Cartland. Douglas is a 50-something private detective that just wants to talk to Heather for whatever reason. But for an obvious reason, Heather isn't interested into talking to an old guy that's stalking her, and she shakes him off. Now this is where the game actually kicks in. On her way through the strangely empty shopping mall, Heather runs into a closer demon for the first time. And I wonder who taught her to use that gun. In this mall, she also runs into another character, a mysterious woman called Claudia Wolf. Claudia tells Heather something about how she has to remember her true self. That's a little hint. Nevertheless, a big portion of the game now deals with Heather trying to escape her demonic followers and reaching her home. To do so, she has to shoot and puzzle her way out of the mall, a subway station, sewers. By the way, how come that every horror game has to have a sewer level? I know those places are spoopy and all, but even back in 2003, the concept was pretty old already. And horror games still do them for some reason. There's also a nice callback to the first game with a boss fight that's reminiscent to the split head lizard, as you can see here. And of course, her way also leads her into the nightmarish landscape of the other world, the one from the first and second game. We also get to hear a familiar voice when she passes over to the nightmare world for the first time.
It's being invaded by the other world, by a world of someone's nightmarish delusions come to life.
Now this should give you a little overview of the first few hours of gameplay and what you can expect from the game. Before I continue on into spoiler territory, I want to give my general review of the game. I have to say, it's a pretty solid sequel to the first games. Heather's sometimes cocky behavior fits her role as a teenager pretty well, and besides being the first female main character in the series, she's also the only one so far that shows that she's afraid of the monsters and the demons. I was missing that from Harry and James. The combat seems more fluid this time around, and the sound and look is great as always. But it seems that I had some issues with the shadows in the game. I guess my copy of the game was a little bit damaged. And since this was the second time of me playing the game, I also got a look at the rewards you get for beating the game once. You may already saw the costume change of Douglas, but there is a ton of exchangeable costumes for Heather. As you can see on the screen right now, the transform costume. I really like that costume. I don't know why. There are also some nice little odds to other games, like the fairies from Legend of Zelda, you know, these creepy ones. And there are also nods to Silent Hill 2. That sounds weird. For example, there's a poster of Maria in the strip club. There's a scene where Heather talks about receiving a letter from her dead wife. Pretty funny stuff. Altogether, I have to say that Silent Hill 3 is a good sequel and installment to the series. The story was interesting, but it was a little bit too predictable for my taste. Halfway through the game, I knew exactly what was going to happen, even the first time around playing it. If I had to rank it somewhere, I would say that Silent Hill 2 is still my favorite game of the franchise so far, followed by Silent Hill 3, and on the third place is Silent Hill. We are now delving into spoiler territory, so if you want to remain spoiler free for the game, you better stop watching this video. I'm gonna give you a few seconds to do so. Are we good? Good. So, on her way back home, Heather runs into another character, a guy named Vincent Smith. And it turns out that Vincent is a priest to the so-called Order. The Order is another name for the cult Dahlia Gillespie belonged to, you know, that crazy lady from the first part. And during the game we also learned that Vincent and Claudia belong to the revived charter of this order in Silent Hill, and that Vincent is pretty much the leader of this charter. His character is more mysterious in the sense that even though he follows the cult's beliefs, he doesn't really agree with their plans later on in the game. It is also Vincent who reveals to us in his and Heather's dialogue that her father is Harry Mason, our good friend from the first game. And this also reveals that Heather is actually the baby Harry got handed to from the incubator in one of the good endings in the first game. And this pretty much makes that ending retroactively the canon one. So Heather finally reaches her home, and we learn that Claudia killed her father. And I think it's a little bit weird that she pulled that trick off. I mean, she killed Harry. You know, the badass guy that killed God in the first game. I mean, she had some help from a demon, but come on. It still seems a little bit unbelievable. Especially since we learned that throughout the game, Harry was very conscious about Heather's safety. He moved around a lot, he even made her dye her hair from black to blonde to keep her hidden from the cult. And now you want to tell me that a guy this cautious just gets killed by a demon? I guess it had to happen to further the plot. Well, there's actually a good reason why she killed Harry, but we will talk about that one later on. So Heather confronts Claudia, and she takes revenge for her father. She kills the demon, and she gives a small burial to Harry, and decides to travel to Silent Hill to get revenge. Also Douglas pops back into the game and offers her to give her a ride to Silent Hill. Now the rest of the game deals with Heather's search for Claudia. During this, Heather investigates the Brookhaven Mental Hospital. It's one of the levels from the second game. And I have to say, kudos to Konami for keeping the layout of the hospital the same. Everything felt familiar and just like it has been in the second game. And having the nurse demons roaming the corridors of the hospital really made me feel like I played Silent Hill 2 again. It made me feel a little bit nostalgic. I like that if games do that. There's also some spoopy and creepy stuff going on in the hospital, but besides Heather running into Leonard Wolf, Claudia's father, there isn't much going on there. At least not much that I want to spoil for you directly. And at least she got some kind of revenge by killing Claudia's dad. Well, karma's a bitch, I guess. And as we are coming close to the end of the game, Heather eventually ends up at the Lakeview Amusement Park, the place from the very beginning of the game. And this is my favorite part of the game. I don't know why, but there is something about amusement parks and horror games that just gets to me. I really like this level. There is a haunted house part that may be the funnest part in the whole series. It's also pretty frustrating if you don't know what you have to do. But I really enjoyed the Lakeview amusement park bit. And there's also something like a homage to the first game. There is a fight against the memory of Alessa, the previous incarnation of Heather. And this fight takes place on a carousel, just like the fight with Sybil in the first game. And that's all and good, but how does it play out in the end? After Heather accepts that she's both Alessa and Cheryl, she finally reaches the church and is revealed by Claudia that she and Heather's previous self, Alessa, grew up together in the cult. Also, surprise surprise, even though she reincarnated into Heather, the god thing inside Alessa's womb also reincarnated and is now feeding off Heather's hatred for Claudia. That's the reason why she's putting her through all this, why she killed her father. Because she thinks if this god is born out of rage and hate, it's going to be more merciful, more loving. It's really weird. You should play the game to fully understand it. I can't really explain it, and I don't want to. So Vincent tries to stop Claudia from summoning the god, and he gets axed off. He dies like a little bitch. And Heather swallows a piece of crystallite aglofolobo. She swallows a piece of agloboro ding dong. That thing from the first game Harry used to exorcise the Great Demon. Or Kaufman used to exorcise the Great Demon. Now, the god thing gets expelled from her body, and just before Heather is able to kill it, Claudia steps in to swallow that disgusting thing. The god finally gets born, killing Claudia in the process, and Heather now has to fight the god. I actually really enjoyed the design of this god thing. She looks like a mix between the Great Demon from the first game and Alessa herself. The game explains that the god takes form of the being the one that's birthing the demon thinks it's going to look like. So Heather, of course, succeeds in killing the god, foiling the Order's plans once again. And you may have noticed that I haven't mentioned the different endings to the game yet. Well, that's because there are just 2 endings you can get upon playing the game for the first time. There's the canon one, in which Heather spooks the shit out of Douglas by acting like she's going to kill him. Both of them escape Silent Hill, and Heather resumes her life by taking on her real name, Cheryl Mason. And there's also the ending where she's actually killing him, acting like she's being possessed by that god thing. But of course, this wouldn't be a Silent Hill game without an UFO ending. I don't want to spoil it for you, just go ahead and play it or look it up on the internet. It's pretty funny stuff. But guys, there is a lot more stuff going on in the game, like a lot more background information on the Order, the god thing, Heather's internal fight between good and evil. I could go more into detail, I could make this video hours long, but I actually just want to use these entries, these spooky diary entries, to spark interest in the game and make you play the game for yourself or revisit it for yourself. And that is entry number 6 in my spooky diary. I think I just found the right amount of information on the game and story. I tried to make one entry on each game. As I said, I don't want to spoil too much of the game. Well, I say that just talking about the whole game basically. But there are a lot more things happening in these games that I just don't want to really spoil for you guys. I can tell you that there are details you can look out for, or that there are informations you can gather. Is it informations or information? I don't know how to English. And I just want to make you play the game yourself. Yeah, that's basically what I said in the previous section. Never mind. My beautiful people, thank you so much for watching or listening, depending on what you're doing while this video is running. If you enjoyed this, let me know by hitting the like button or leaving a comment. I would really appreciate it if you would subscribe to the channel if you aren't already. And right now I'm actually playing Silent Hill 4, The Room. And we will see each other in the next entry, where we will talk about Silent Hill 4, The Room. I hope you're gonna have a great weekend. Bye bye.